music! Sound off!
The genesis of it was Ed Ward, and he saw the bicentennial coming, 1775 to 1975, and started Fall River Days. I think he started them in '66, and from that we first saw fife and drum units, and we saw the Second Company Governor's Foot Guard, and we saw the guys from Connecticut, and we were pretty impressed with them. And I remember one time, maybe following year, Jim Dunbar and I were standing on the corner of Main Street and Cherry Street, and talking about nothing particular. He said, you know, we ought to be able to do something like that.
So sure enough, off we went on our own. The first time was a parade in Fall River. And the four of us at the time was Jim Dunbar and myself, and Ted Benoit and Brett Hadley. Four of us walked down the street.
We say that we have a ship, and part of that ship has to do with the line officers that are generally up front. And then we have a color guard, which consists of all of the flags and people that are carrying arms and so forth, pikes and things like that. And then we have a Marine unit, which will do musket firing on the street. And then we have, sometimes we have a guy with a mace that's acting as the drum major. And then, of course, we have the field music. And anyone that doesn't do any of those things, if we have to do something with them, we'll stick a sword on their shoulder and put them after everybody else. But the hierarchy is that we have a staff. And that staff consists of a Commodore, a Vice Commodore, Chief of Staff, a clerk, and a prize master. Those are the people who generally operate in any given year.
The Colonial Navy tries to play historically correct music, but as far as drum music, there's not a lot of drum music that was written, but the fife music was plenty to pick from. So a lot of the drum music was composed by Mr. Webb, and he had a unique way of writing drum music. Instead of the typical drum music, he had letters that would stand for the various rudiments. An F stood for a flam that had a circle around it. That means a left-hand flam. And left, left, right, right, whatever the drumsticks were using. If it was a 7-stroke roll, it would be a 7, meant it was a 7-stroke roll, or a 9 or 9-stroke roll. And that's the way he wrote the music. But there was no time signature, so you had to really know the song before you could play it. And that's the way we learned. And that worked fine for a good number of years.
Sea shanties themselves were generally working songs. You had people that were hauling lines and so forth, or, you know, weighing anchors and using different types of cadence to get that team to work together. And so these shanties generally have a story to them, and they were usually made up by the shantyman, who was probably, you know, one of the lead sailors on board, one of the old-timers that knew everything about what had to be done, and then would give them that cadence to get that particular job done. But now there are also songs of the sea, but as they've evolved, they have become songs that we can sing, and generally in an entertaining way. But they all tell stories.
Ship station, boys, be handy, be handy. We're bound for Valparaiso around the Horn. Well, they called us out one night to reef the topsails. The topsails. Now, belaying pins were flying round the deck. Deck, deck. The cook was stealing brandy from the captain. The captain. I know we'll never make it in this wreck. Wreck, wreck. Paddy lay back.
Our officer uniforms, green, and our Marine uniforms in red were authentic to what they would have worn back in 1775. The field music part, or the enlisted men, the seamen with the white slops and the red and white striped shirts, where they didn't really have a uniform back in those days. the uniform was created for those people who were basically out of the slop chest of the captain of the ship, and depending on how rich the captain of the ship was, where the quality of the clothes they were, but they didn't necessarily match.
For about 12, 15 years, Chuck and I ran the grog wagon. And sometimes Emily would have, my wife would have to assist as well. And it's a big project. We pack in about 180 bottles of beer. And the guys are very particular in the brands, and they have to be located properly so that they don't have to fish around in the ice. So that it's a big project, loading it and unloading it. So Chuck and I would have to do that. And when we go over to Martha's Vineyard, good Lord, my truck barely can haul the trailer. And the Steamship Authority calls us the grog van. Because once in a while they open the back of the trailer to inspect for, firearms, and all they find is cases and cases and cases and coolers of beer stacked right to the back.
We have 11 fifers in the car now, and everybody plays and plays well. It's the best fife line we've ever had. And my son expounds the theory that you don't have to play a lot of notes, but you have to play loud. And we played loud. You wouldn't want to hear us with 11 fifers or even 10 of them, which we had in Lexington in here. We really, it's a joy. And he writes harmonies for them. So some of the songs have 2 and some of them had 3 parts of harmony. And I can't read a note. I can't read a lick of music, but I manage somehow. I haven't lost my job.
When we first joined, it was going to be as a family. So we had our children, and we had what was known as the Sea of Green. We had little t-shirts made for them, and they were all the green t-shirts with our logo on it. And so we'd always be looking as we were going down the parade route for that Sea of Green.
We wear our uniforms and carry our flags with a lot of pride. And we're very particular about that, but when it's time for us to enjoy ourselves, we do that as well. And having the family with us, it makes that celebration more universal, and I think that's what's held the group together so long, is because the family is committed to what we're doing as well as the guys that are in it.
It's not unusual for fife and drum corps for just the guys to go and do it, and then afterwards they just scatter and maybe go home, or they go to a bar. And we don't do that because we bring our own bar. It makes a difference. And in the kids, we've seen them grow up. Kids, our kids, grandkids, and now for a couple of us anyway, great grandkids. My 2 great grandsons, when they get in the car, they want to hear fife and drum music. They're 8 and 4, and that's a wonderful thing. This is the future. I hope that it will take over.